It's critical, whatever we do, to ensure that women and children are protected from violence, and this is exactly why the best organization should be equipped to provide the best care to those that need it most. That said, unfortunately, the current legislation, as it's written, opens the door to federal funds being channeled to organizations with a long track record of providing abortions. In fact, the U.S. Government Accountability Office released a report in 2018 stating that Planned Parenthood received $340,000 over a 2-year period through grants administered under VAWA. The question we must ask ourselves today is, as we seek to provide care, should an organization fraught with cases of sexual abuse cover up be on the receiving end of these grants? Our hearts break when we hear stories, shocking as they are, like this one, the young daughter of George Savannah in the state of Washington, who in 2014 was found to have taken his daughter 3 different times to a Planned Parenthood clinic, each time for a forced abortion after he impregnated her. Once when she was 14, again at age 15, and again at age 17. What did Planned Parenthood do to prevent such abuse? Not a thing. So again, I ask, does this sound like the type of organization that seriously believes in bringing justice to the abused? Nearly 4,000 innocent lives were lost to abortion in my district in 2016 alone. And since Roe v. Wade, we all know the statistics. Nearly 60 million children have been aborted in the United States, and the statistics on abortion are staggering, and they should not be. In Louisiana, over 770 children are taken each year from what at times is an abusive situation, much like the ones we're discussing today, and they're welcomed into loving arms all across the state through foster care and adoption. That is a statistic we can be proud of and should support. Programs like these provide opportunities to advance the cause of justice for vulnerable women and children. VAWA should never be used as a tool to harm or terminate innocent lives or to promote organizations engaged in the cover-up of sexual abuse cases. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. I yield back to
Will the gentleman yield, Mr. Johnson, for a question?
Yield. Sure.
Thank you. In the description you just gave, I think you said that this amendment was intended to be sure that no money could be used for an abortion. But, of course, the language of the amendment is much more expansive because, of course, that prohibition already exists under the Hyde Amendment. But your language in this amendment says, no federal funds may be provided, directly or indirectly, to an entity unless the entity certifies that during the period for which such funds are provided, the entity will not perform and will not provide any funds to any other entity that performs an abortion. So in an entity, for example, like Planned Parenthood that has spectacular domestic violence programs, would be prohibited from providing desperately needed services to women who are victims of domestic violence because that agency may, in fact, perform abortion. So it's
with other funds.
That's right. So it seems like, I mean, just to be clear, your description about no federal funds for abortion is actually not what the amendment does. It says we are going to punish any agency that exercises what our Supreme Court has said is a constitutionally protected right to provide in services to terminate a pregnancy by denying them resources to provide this desperately needed domestic violence services. And so I obviously strongly oppose this amendment, but I think we need to be honest with our committee members about what it actually does. If that wasn't your intention, then perhaps you can withdraw the amendment and make another stab at it.
Well,
let's not make another stab.
Reclaim my time. Delighted that you weighed in. It's an astute observation. If we can fine-tune the language, I would certainly welcome your assistance in doing that, to target, to make sure that these funds are not provided for abortion. If Planned Parenthood or any other organization wants to do these worthwhile services of preventing violence against women, we're all for that. One of the concerns we have is that it was announced over the weekend that the Democrat leadership is intending to try to take a strike at the Hyde Amendment. And we were all surprised to hear that. I hope it's just a rumor. I hope I'm wrong. But our intention is to make sure that that prohibition remains in federal law.
Well, if I could just, if you'll yield one more time, I take you at your word that that's your intention. I hope you will agree that's not what the language is. So if that is your intention, I would at least ask you to at least offer an amendment that captures that versus this.
We can change 1 or 2 words to fine-tune that language, but I think the intent of the amendment hopefully is something that we should agree to in a bipartisan fashion. The purpose of VAWA is not to fund abortion, obviously, is to protect women and children. Abortion is obviously the opposite of that. It takes the life of an unborn child. So for that reason, I'll modify the language and reintroduce it. Thank you.
Does the gentlelady insist on her point of order?
I insist on my point of order, Mr. Chairman. I insist on my point of order because the amendment adds a new title to the bill. It is outside the scope of the bill. It does not amend any existing part of the bill, and it falls, as I indicated, outside the scope Therefore, this amendment is non-germane.
Does the
Point of order,
gentleman- does
Mr.
the-
Chairman, I think,
does-
point of
does
order.
the there's no point of order right now. Does the gentleman wish to be heard on the point of order?
Let's do it and introduce it.
Oh, sure.
Unless you want to withdraw the amendment altogether.
I believe it is germane. I think it's perfectly consistent with the intent, the spirit of the law, and with the language. And so we will fine-tune the language, and I'll reintroduce it.